What if the greatest mistake of your life is not choosing the wrong person, but walking away from the right one because they awakened parts of you that you were never ready to face? Today, you'll discover why the people truly meant to change your life rarely arrive wrapped in comfort. They arrive carrying a mirror, exposing everything you've spent years trying to avoid, and why leaving too soon may mean abandoning the very future you've been searching for. If this message resonates with something you've quietly experienced, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who may be standing at the edge of walking away from the very relationship that was meant to awaken them. Sometimes one insight, discovered at the right moment, changes an entire life. Have you ever noticed that the people who leave the deepest mark on your life rarely make you feel comfortable in the beginning? Instead of immediate certainty, they often awaken confusion, hesitation, or even the strange urge to step back. Most people interpret these emotions as proof that something is wrong, yet the human mind has a remarkable habit of resisting anything that threatens the identity it has carefully constructed over the years. What feels unfamiliar is often labeled dangerous even when it carries the greatest potential for growth. When someone enters your life and quietly challenges the stories you have believed about yourself, your inner defenses begin to activate. If you have grown accustomed to emotional distance, genuine closeness may feel overwhelming. If disappointment has shaped your past, kindness can seem suspicious. The mind prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility because certainty, even when painful, feels safer than the unknown. This is why an extraordinary connection can initially produce anxiety instead of peace. The person who is truly significant does not simply fit into your existing world. They invite you to expand beyond it. Their presence exposes beliefs you never questioned, fears you never admitted, and emotional patterns you thought were simply part of your personality. What appears to be discomfort is often the quiet friction between who you have been and who you are capable of becoming. Many relationships end at this exact point because people mistake emotional activation for incompatibility. They assume that because the connection feels intense, it must be unhealthy. In reality, intensity alone reveals nothing. Sometimes it is merely the soul encountering a level of honesty it has never experienced before. Growth has never been mistaken for comfort. Every meaningful transformation begins by disturbing the structure that no longer serves you. The greatest tragedy is that many people spend years searching for someone extraordinary, only to retreat the moment that person arrives. They confuse the trembling of old fears with the voice of wisdom, never realizing that what frightened them most was not the other person, but the unfamiliar version of themselves beginning to emerge. One of the greatest conflicts within the human experience is the silent battle between fear and intuition. They often speak at the same moment, yet they never speak the same language. Fear rushes to protect what already exists. Intuition quietly points toward what has not yet been discovered. The tragedy is that many people mistake the loudness of fear for the certainty of truth, while overlooking the calm voice that has been guiding them all along. Fear is shaped by memory. It gathers every disappointment, betrayal, rejection, and unanswered question from the past and presents them as evidence that history will repeat itself. When someone meaningful enters your life, fear immediately searches for familiar patterns. It whispers that opening your heart will only recreate old pain. It convinces you that distance is wisdom, that caution is maturity, and that leaving first is somehow safer than staying. Yet these reactions often have little to do with the person standing before you. They are echoes of experiences that remain unresolved within you. Intuition works differently. It does not ignore danger, but neither does it confuse every unfamiliar feeling with a threat. It recognizes a deeper sense of alignment that cannot always be explained by logic alone. Sometimes intuition tells you to remain present even when uncertainty exists. It invites observation instead of reaction, curiosity instead of escape. Unlike fear, which demands immediate action, intuition is patient. It asks you to see clearly before deciding. This is why profound connections often create inner conflict. Part of you feels strangely drawn toward the other person, while another part urgently searches for reasons to retreat. The rational mind may produce endless explanations for walking away, Yet beneath those explanations lies a quieter awareness, suggesting that something meaningful is unfolding. The discomfort comes from standing between two opposing forces, one trying to preserve the identity built from yesterday, the other inviting you toward a future you have never experienced. Many people believe they lost the right relationship because the timing was wrong. More often, they lost it because fear spoke first and intuition was never given the chance to finish its sentence. Real transformation begins when you learn to distinguish between the voice that protects your past and the voice that gently leads you toward the life waiting beyond it. Have you ever found yourself instantly admiring someone or feeling an unexplained resistance toward them without knowing why? Most people believe these reactions are entirely about the other person, yet the mind often uses another human being as a mirror, reflecting qualities that already exist within us but remain hidden from conscious awareness. What we notice most intensely in others frequently reveals something unfinished within ourselves. When you meet someone who seems unusually confident, compassionate, independent, or emotionally grounded, your admiration may not simply arise because of who they are. It may emerge because they embody qualities your deeper self longs to develop. Their presence reminds you of possibilities you have neglected, talents you have doubted, or strengths you have quietly buried beneath years of fear and routine. In this way, attraction becomes more than emotion. It becomes recognition. You are not only seeing them, you are catching a glimpse of the person you could become. The opposite is equally revealing. Sometimes another person's honesty irritates you because it exposes your habit of avoiding difficult conversations. Their confidence unsettles you because it highlights your own insecurity. Their emotional openness feels overwhelming because it challenges the walls you have spent years constructing. Rather than acknowledging these inner conflicts, the mind often projects them outward, convincing you that the other person is the problem. This allows your familiar self-image to remain untouched, even if it keeps you trapped in the same emotional patterns. This is why certain people seem impossible to forget. They awaken parts of your personality that had been asleep for years. They reveal hidden gifts, unresolved fears, and unexplored potential all at once. Their influence extends far beyond romance or companionship. They become catalysts for self-discovery, often without realizing the role they are playing in your life. Many relationships end because people focus only on the surface interaction while ignoring the deeper reflection taking place beneath it. They walk away believing they escaped a difficult person, when in reality they escaped an opportunity to understand themselves more honestly. The people who affect you most deeply are rarely just changing your feelings about them. They are quietly transforming the relationship you have with your own inner world, inviting you to become someone more whole than you were before. The most transformative relationships rarely begin by making you feel complete. Instead, they expose everything within you that still seeks healing. This is why genuine connection can feel strangely unsettling. The moment someone begins to see beyond the image you present to the world, hidden emotions begin to rise. Old insecurities awaken, childhood fears quietly return. Defensive habits that once protected you suddenly become visible. What many people call relationship problems are often encounters with parts of themselves they have avoided for years. Every person carries an unseen side of the personality, filled with qualities, emotions, and memories pushed out of conscious awareness. It is not necessarily evil or destructive. It simply contains everything you have learned to suppress because it felt unacceptable, painful, or unsafe. This hidden dimension influences your choices more than you realize. When someone meaningful enters your life, they often illuminate this concealed world without saying a single word. Perhaps you have convinced yourself that you no longer fear abandonment, yet their temporary silence leaves you restless. Perhaps you believe you trust others, but genuine intimacy makes you instinctively withdraw. Maybe you see yourself as emotionally independent until one person's opinion suddenly carries unexpected weight. These reactions are not random. They reveal the hidden patterns that have quietly shaped your relationships all along. This is why many people mistake emotional discomfort for proof that they are with the wrong person. In reality, they may simply be standing at the doorway of profound personal growth. The relationship is not creating these fears, it is uncovering what was already there. patiently waiting to be recognized. The deeper the connection, the more difficult it becomes to hide from yourself. Many choose to leave at this stage because escaping another person feels easier than confronting the emotions their presence awakens. Yet leaving does not erase those hidden patterns. They simply travel with you into the next relationship, waiting for another encounter to reveal them again. The person who challenges your inner world is not always your greatest obstacle. They may be the unexpected guide leading you toward greater emotional freedom. The deepest love is not the one that protects every illusion. It is the one that gently dismantles them, allowing you to discover a stronger, more authentic version of yourself beneath everything you once believed you had to hide. How many times have you heard someone say, "We met at the wrong time"? It is one of the most common explanations for a relationship that never fully unfolded. Yet what if the problem was never the calendar, the distance, or the circumstances? What if the true obstacle was not that life placed you together too early, but that your inner world had not yet caught up with the opportunity standing before you? Timing is often blamed for what fear, emotional immaturity, or unresolved wounds quietly create. People imagine the right relationship arriving when every external condition is perfect. They expect stability, confidence, emotional clarity, and complete certainty before opening their hearts. But life rarely follows such a script. Meaningful encounters often appear during seasons of confusion, transition, or personal struggle. They arrive when careers are uncertain, when old relationships have left scars, or when identity itself feels unsettled. The appearance of disorder does not necessarily mean the connection is misplaced. Sometimes it means transformation has begun. The deepest relationships do not simply fit into the life you have already built. They ask you to become someone capable of sustaining them. That process can feel uncomfortable because growth rarely happens inside familiar routines. A person who is meant to influence your future may arrive before you fully understand yourself. Their presence exposes habits that no longer serve you, beliefs that limit your potential, and fears that quietly govern your decisions. This is not evidence that the connection is wrong. It may be evidence that your inner life is being invited to evolve. Many people confuse emotional readiness with external readiness. They wait for the perfect job, the perfect home, or the perfect moment, believing these achievements will automatically prepare them for lasting love. Yet genuine readiness begins within. It is found in the willingness to communicate honestly, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to grow beyond the patterns that have repeatedly sabotaged meaningful relationships. The irony is that what feels like bad timing is often life's way of revealing exactly what still needs attention. The relationship becomes a mirror, not of what is missing in the other person, but of what remains unfinished within you. If you immediately walk away because everything feels uncertain, you may mistake the discomfort of growth for the absence of destiny. Some of the most life-changing connections begin long before you feel prepared for them. Their purpose is not to meet the person you already are, but to awaken the person you were always capable of becoming. There are moments in life when another person's presence feels impossible to explain. Nothing extraordinary may have happened between you. There may have been only a conversation, a brief meeting, or a simple glance. Yet something remains. Long after they leave, your mind continues returning to them, not because you are obsessed, but because something deeper has been quietly stirred. Many dismiss this as coincidence or imagination, yet some encounters leave impressions that logic alone cannot fully describe because they awaken dimensions of yourself that had long remained dormant. One of the first silent signs of a transformative connection is an unusual sense of familiarity. It does not mean you believe you have literally known the person before. Rather, their presence feels strangely natural, as though your inner world recognizes something your conscious mind has not yet understood. Conversations flow with unexpected ease, silence feels comfortable instead of awkward, and you find yourself revealing thoughts you rarely share with anyone else. This sense of recognition cannot be manufactured. It emerges naturally when two lives begin touching something deeper than ordinary attraction. Another sign is that the relationship quietly encourages growth instead of complacency. You begin questioning old habits, examining beliefs you once accepted without thought, and noticing emotional patterns that had always operated in the background. Their influence inspires you to become more honest, more patient, more courageous, and more authentic. They do not force change upon you. Their very existence makes remaining the same feel impossible. The connection becomes less about possessing another person and more about discovering hidden parts of yourself. Perhaps the most overlooked sign is that they awaken both peace and challenge at the same time. Their presence offers comfort, yet it also confronts the fears you have spent years avoiding. You feel seen, but being truly seen can also feel frightening because it leaves little room for masks or carefully crafted identities. This combination of safety and vulnerability often confuses people. They mistake the discomfort of being emotionally exposed for incompatibility when it may actually be evidence that something meaningful is unfolding. A person meant to transform your life does not simply make you feel desired. They make you feel understood in ways that are difficult to explain. They challenge your excuses without diminishing your worth. They see strengths you overlook and encourage possibilities you had forgotten. Long after conversations end, their words continue shaping your decisions, your confidence, and your understanding of who you are. Their greatest gift is not that they complete you, but that they quietly awaken the parts of you that were waiting to be fully lived. One of the quietest tragedies in life is not losing the wrong person. It is leaving the right person before you understand why they entered your life. Many people believe they are protecting themselves when they walk away from a relationship that feels emotionally intense. They convince themselves they are simply being practical, avoiding future disappointment or refusing unnecessary complications. Yet beneath those reasonable explanations often lies something far more powerful: the instinct to escape personal growth before it fully begins. Growth is rarely comfortable. It asks you to release familiar ways of thinking, reacting, and protecting yourself. When another person begins exposing patterns you have carried for years, your first impulse may be to create distance. Their honesty feels overwhelming because it reveals your hidden fears. Their patience makes your emotional walls more visible. Their consistency highlights how accustomed you have become to instability. Instead of appreciating these revelations, the mind often concludes that the relationship itself is the source of discomfort. This misunderstanding causes countless meaningful connections to end before they have the opportunity to mature. People leave not because love was absent, but because the relationship demanded a version of themselves they had not yet become. Remaining would require vulnerability instead of control, honesty instead of avoidance, and trust instead of constant self-protection. For someone who has spent years surviving through emotional defenses, these changes can feel threatening rather than liberating. The consequences of leaving too soon are often invisible at first. Life moves forward. New relationships appear, new opportunities arise, yet the same emotional patterns quietly return because the lesson was never learned. Different faces begin carrying the same unresolved struggles. The fear of abandonment resurfaces, difficulty trusting returns, the instinct to withdraw during moments of closeness remains unchanged. The people may change, but the inner conflict stays remarkably familiar. Years later, many look back and realize they did not lose someone because the connection lacked meaning. They lost the opportunity because they confused emotional challenge with emotional danger. They mistook the discomfort of becoming someone new for proof that they should leave. The person they walked away from may have been more than a companion. They may have been the mirror that revealed everything necessary for lasting transformation. Sometimes the greatest loss is not the relationship itself. It is the version of yourself that could have emerged if you had found the courage to stay long enough to grow. The defining moments of life are rarely shaped by certainty. They are shaped by the choices you make while uncertainty still surrounds you. Every meaningful relationship eventually presents a decision that cannot be solved by logic alone. One path leads back to familiar habits, familiar fears, and the safety of remaining unchanged. The other asks for courage, the quiet willingness to step beyond everything your past has taught you to expect. This is where lasting transformation begins, not because fear disappears, but because you refuse to let it make your decisions. Most people spend years repeating the same emotional patterns without realizing it. They promise themselves each new relationship will be different, yet they carry the same distrust, the same need for control, the same fear of vulnerability, and the same instinct to leave whenever closeness becomes uncomfortable. They believe they are choosing different people when in reality they are choosing the same unconscious reactions. Without awareness, the past quietly recreates itself through new circumstances. Breaking this cycle requires something far more powerful than finding the perfect partner. It requires becoming the kind of person who no longer allows old wounds to dictate present choices. Courage is not the absence of doubt. It is the decision to remain open even when certainty is unavailable. It is choosing honest conversation instead of silent withdrawal. It is asking difficult questions instead of making fearful assumptions. It is allowing yourself to be seen without hiding behind carefully constructed emotional defenses. The remarkable truth is that the relationship you have been seeking may depend less on meeting someone extraordinary and more on becoming someone emotionally available enough to recognize and sustain extraordinary love. A meaningful connection cannot flourish where fear controls every decision. Trust grows only when courage is given room to breathe. There comes a moment when you must decide whether you will continue protecting the version of yourself created by past disappointments or begin living from the person you are capable of becoming. That choice belongs to no one else. No circumstance can make it for you, and no relationship can avoid it on your behalf. Perhaps the person standing before you is not asking you to become someone different. Perhaps they are quietly inviting you to become the most authentic version of yourself. If you find the courage to stop running from every unfamiliar emotion, you may discover that the greatest relationship of your life was never waiting for perfect conditions. It was waiting for the moment you finally chose growth over fear, truth over comfort, and transformation over repetition. Sometimes the person meant for you is also the person who teaches you how to become the person you were always meant to be. The greatest relationships are not always the easiest to recognize. They rarely announce themselves with perfect certainty or effortless confidence. More often, they arrive quietly, carrying questions instead of answers, growth instead of comfort, and transformation instead of convenience. That is why so many people walk away too soon. They mistake the unfamiliar feeling of becoming for the warning sign of leaving. They believe they are escaping the wrong person, when in reality, they may be escaping the next chapter of their own evolution. Every meaningful encounter asks a silent question. Will you respond from the wisdom of your true self or from the fears your past has taught you to obey? The answer to that question shapes far more than a single relationship. It shapes the person you become, because every time you choose fear over understanding, you strengthen the walls that keep your life predictable but limited. Every time you choose awareness over instinct, honesty over avoidance, and courage over retreat, you create the possibility for something entirely new. This does not mean every relationship is destined to last forever. Some people enter your life only to teach a lesson before continuing on their own path. Discernment is always necessary. Not every powerful connection is a lifelong partnership, and not every emotional intensity is a sign that two people belong together. The deeper invitation is not to cling blindly to every relationship, but to avoid letting fear make the decision before wisdom has had the chance to speak. So if someone has entered your life and awakened questions you cannot ignore, do not rush to label the experience. Observe it, learn from it, allow it to reveal the hidden parts of yourself before deciding what it truly means. Sometimes the person standing before you is not there to rescue you or complete you. They are there to awaken the strength, honesty, and wholeness that have always existed within you, waiting to be discovered. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. The person meant for you is not simply someone who walks beside you. They are someone whose presence calls forth the version of yourself you were always capable of becoming. If you have the courage to remain present through the uncertainty, you may one day realize that the moment you almost walked away was the very moment your life was quietly beginning to change forever. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, have you ever met someone who changed you long before they became part of your life? Your story may be the encouragement someone else needs to hear today. Until next time, keep seeking truth, keep choosing growth, and never be afraid of the transformation that begins when you stop running from yourself.